The starship Determination shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander Park Jin-woo felt his stomach lurch from the sudden shift, but he kept his grip steady on the bridge railing. Around him, the crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. "Status report," Park called out, his voice calm despite the excitement building in his chest. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human expedition before them. 6 months of jumping through hyperspace had brought them to the edge of known space. Navigation Officer Kim Mingi looked up from her console, her dark eyes wide with concentration. "We're exactly where we plan to be, sir. The new coordinates are locked in." She had been tracking their position through dozens of jumps, each one taking them deeper into unexplored territory. Chief Engineer Lee Tae-yoon wiped sweat from his forehead as he monitored the quantum drives. The massive engines that powered their journey were still cooling down from the latest jump. "All systems are green, Commander. The drives are holding steady." Park nodded and turned to the main view screen. Stars dotted the darkness ahead of them, looking the same as they did from Earth. But he knew they were impossibly far from home now. This was truly alien space. "Sir," Communications Specialist Choi Hannah's voice cut through the quiet bridge. Her hands moved quickly over her control panel. "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple contacts. They're huge." Park felt his heart rate increase. "How huge?" "Each one is at least 5 times the size of our ship, and there are dozens of them." Hannah's voice carried a mix of fear and wonder. "They're not moving toward us, but they're definitely there." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what this meant. After years of searching, they had finally found proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Park straightened his shoulders and made the decision that would change everything. "Open a channel. Broadcast on all frequencies," he ordered. "This is Commander Park Jin-woo of the Earth vessel Determination. We come in peace." The response came faster than anyone expected. The main screen flickered to life, showing a face unlike anything they had ever seen. The being had pale blue skin and large, gentle eyes that seemed to shimmer with inner light. When it spoke, the words came through their translation system in perfect Korean. "Earth vessel." "Did you say Earth?" The alien's voice was soft, almost musical. "That cannot be possible. Earth is. Earth is mythology." Park exchanged confused glances with his crew. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand. You're from Earth, the planet in the Sol system." The alien's large eyes grew even wider. You are Terrans. The legendary beings from the Forbidden World." The creature seemed to be having trouble breathing. "This is impossible. You cannot be real." "Assure you we are very real," Park replied, trying to keep his tone friendly. "May I ask who you are?" "I am Cathara of the Valen species. I serve as an ambassador for the Galactic Consortium." The alien paused as if gathering courage. "We have ancient texts that speak of Terra, the Death World, planet of storms and predators and endless scarcity. The texts say it was inhabited by beings of impossible strength and endurance." Park felt a chill run down his spine. "Our planet can be dangerous, but we've learned to live with it. We're not particularly strong or special." Cathara made a sound. That might have been laughter, though it sounded more like fear. "The legends say Terrans could survive in the void of space, that they could endure radiation that would kill any other species, that they thrived in conditions that would destroy entire civilizations." "Those are just stories," Park said, though he was beginning to understand why the alien seemed so frightened. "We're explorers, not warriors." May I come aboard your vessel?" Cathara asked. "The Consortium Council must know of this. The mythical Terrans are real." An hour later, Park stood in the docking bay as a small alien shuttle attached to their ship. When the airlock opened, Cathara stepped through, and Park could see her hands shaking. She was tall and thin, with delicate features that spoke of a species that had never known real hardship. "Your ship," she whispered, looking around at the metal corridors and functional design. "It is exactly as the legends described. It's built for war, designed for survival." "It's just a research vessel," Park explained. though he was starting to see their ship through alien eyes. Where humans saw practical design, Cathara saw a war machine. She walked slowly through the corridors, touching the walls with something close to reverence. When they passed the engineering section, she stopped and stared at Li Taeyan as he worked on a maintenance panel. "He is not wearing protection," she said in amazement.
Ow.
"The radiation levels here would kill most of my species within minutes." Parked realized that what seemed normal to humans was extraordinary to beings who had evolved on gentler worlds. Their ship, their bodies, their very existence was the stuff of galactic legend. As they reached the bridge, Cathara turned to face him. "Commander Park Jinwoo of the mythical Terra, I formally invite you to meet with the Galactic Consortium. The galaxy must know that the legends are true." Park looked at his crew, all of them ordinary humans who had just discovered they were living myths. The real adventure was just beginning. The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 days through Consortium. Space. Commander Park Jinwoo watched through the viewports as they passed massive space stations and peaceful colony worlds. Everything looked clean and perfect, like something from a dream. "I've never seen anything like this," said Dr. Yoon Soo-main as she studied the medical reports Cathara had shared. "Their average lifespan is over 300 years, but they've never experienced war, famine, or natural disasters." Navigation. Officer Kim Minji shook her head in wonder. "Look at their ships. No weapons, no armor plating. They've built everything for comfort and beauty." When they finally docked at Nexus Prime, the humans were amazed by what they saw. The station was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. Crystal spires reached toward the stars, and gardens grew in every available space. Alien beings moved peacefully through wide corridors that sparkled with gentle light. But something strange happened the moment they stepped off their ship. Crowds began to gather. At first, it was just a few curious aliens who had heard about the arrival of the legendary Terrans. But within minutes, hundreds of beings pressed forward to get a look at the mythical humans. Dr. Yoon Soo-main felt uncomfortable with all the attention. She was just trying to help repair a broken medical scanner when it happened. The device was heavy, requiring a team of 4 consortium workers to lift it safely. But Soo-main simply grabbed it with both hands and moved it to where it needed to. "Go!" The aliens around her gasped and stepped back. Some made sounds of fear, while others whispered prayers in their native languages. Soo-main looked around in confusion. "What's wrong?" she asked Cathara, who was staring at her with wide eyes. You lifted that alone," Cathara whispered. "That device weighs more than most of our species can even push, when you moved it like it was nothing." Soo-main looked at the scanner. To her, it felt like lifting a heavy box during a move to a new apartment. "Difficult, but not impossible. It's not that heavy," she said. But the word spread quickly through the station. The Terrans possessed impossible strength. Security Chief Kong Dong-yoon noticed that aliens moved out of his way when he walked through the corridors. At first, he thought they were being polite, then he realized they were actually afraid of him. "Why do they look at us like that?" he asked Ambassador Cathara during their first official meeting. "Your people are legends to us," Cathara explained. "Our oldest stories tell of beings who could crush metal with their bare hands, who could survive in the vacuum of space, who never gave up no matter how hopeless things became." Pilot Shin Hiji was walking past a viewing area when she noticed a group of alien children pressed against the transparent walls. Their large eyes followed her every movement. When she waved at them, they scattered in fear, then slowly crept back to watch her again. "They're not afraid of us," she realized, talking to communications specialist Choi Hannah. "They're in awe. It's like we're something out of their fairy tales." The truth became clear over the next few days. The Galactic Consortium was made up of species that had evolved on perfect worlds. Their planets had stable weather, abundant food, and no dangerous predators. They had never needed to develop the strength, endurance, or determination that humans took for granted. Dr. Yoon Soo-main discovered this when she visited their main medical facility. The alien doctors showed her their most advanced trauma unit. With great pride, to human eyes, it looked like a basic first aid station. "This is where we treat our most serious injuries," explained Dr. Velahan, the chief medical officer. Broken bones that don't heal properly, infections that last more than a few days. Suman tried not to show her surprise. On Earth, those would be minor problems that most people could handle at home. What about more serious injuries? Burns, deep cuts, internal damage? Dr. Velahan looked confused. Those would be fatal. No living being could survive such trauma. That evening, the human crew gathered in their assigned quarters to discuss what they had learned. The aliens weren't weak by their own standards, but compared to humans, they were incredibly fragile. What seemed normal to humans was impossible. To them, they've never had to fight for survival, observed Chief Engineer Lee Tae-yoon. Their worlds gave them everything they needed. They never developed the ability to endure pain or hardship. Commander Park nodded thoughtfully. And now, they see us as the warriors from their ancient stories. Beings who can do impossible things. The next day, word had spread throughout the entire station. Aliens traveled from across the consortium just to see the mythical Terrans. They watched in amazement as Engineer Lee Tae-yoon worked in areas with radiation levels that would kill most species. They gasped when Security Chief Kang Dong-yoon lifted equipment that required mechanical assistance for anyone else. But it wasn't just physical abilities that impressed them. The aliens were fascinated by human determination. When a minor problem arose with their ship's systems, the crew worked for 18 hours straight to fix it. The consortium workers were exhausted after just 4 hours and couldn't understand how humans could continue. "You never stop," whispered one young alien scientist to Dr. Yoon Soo-min. "No matter how tired you become, you keep working." Just like the legend said. As the days passed, the humans began to understand their unique position. They weren't just representatives of their species anymore. They were living proof that the galaxy's oldest legends were real. And somehow, that made them both more important and more isolated than they had ever imagined. Chancellor Morden stood before the great assembly hall of Nexus Prime, his golden robes flowing as he addressed the gathered leaders of the Galactic Consortium. His species, the hegemony, had been the dominant voice in galactic politics for over 1,000 years. He was not easily impressed. "Fellow council members," his voice boomed across the chamber, "we are being asked to believe in fairy tales. These so-called Terrans claim to be the legendary warriors from our ancient texts. But I see only ordinary beings who have fooled us with simple tricks." Murmurs spread through the assembly. Many species had traveled great distances to witness the arrival of the mythical humans. Some believed completely, while others shared Mordenist doubts. The legends speak of beings who could survive in the void of space, who could endure conditions that would destroy entire worlds, Morden continued. Yet these creatures look no different from any other species. They are small, weak-looking, and claim to be explorers, not warriors. Ambassador Kethera rose from her seat, her pale blue skin flushed with emotion. "Chancellor, you have seen what they can do." Dr. Yoon lifted equipment that requires 4 of our workers. "They work in radiation that would kill us." Morden waved, his hand dismissively. "Parlor tricks. Any species can develop some resistance to their home environment. But the legends speak of true impossibility. I demand proof that these beings are what they claim to be." Commander Park Jin-woo had been listening to the debate through translation devices. He stepped forward, his calm demeanor unchanged despite the challenge. "What kind of proof would satisfy you, Chancellor?" A slow smile spread across Morden's face. "The legends say Terrans can survive anywhere, adapt to any condition, overcome any obstacle. If this is true, then you should have no trouble with a few simple tests." The first test began within days. Creo 7 was a frozen world on the edge of consortium space, used only for scientific research. The surface temperature was -200 degrees, and storms of frozen methane swept across the landscape like glass knives. "This is madness," whispered Dr. Velahan as he watched from the safety of a heated observation shuttle. "No organic life can survive on that surface for more than a few minutes." But the humans were already setting up their equipment on the planet below. Commander Park and his crew moved efficiently through the deadly cold, their breath visible in the thin atmosphere. They wore standard environmental suits, nothing more advanced than what any spacefaring species would use. "Look at them," breathed one of the consortium observers. "They're actually building a shelter down there." Chief Engineer Lee Tae-yoon worked steadily to establish their base camp. The methane snow cut through the air like tiny blades, but he continued his work without complaint. Within hours, they had created a functioning outpost in conditions that the consortium had declared impossible for organic life. Chancellor Morden watched the display screens with growing interest. "One test proves nothing," he declared. "Let us see how they handle real adversity." The second test took place on Turgash, a mining world where the gravity was 3 times Earth normal. The consortium used robotic systems and powered exoskeletons to work there, and even then, exposure was limited to a few hours at a time. Engineer Lee Tae-yoon stepped onto the surface wearing only a basic pressure suit. The crushing gravity immediately pressed down on him, making every movement require tremendous effort. Consortium observers watched in amazement as he walked normally across the landing pad. "Possible," muttered one of the alien engineers. "Should be crawling. That gravity should have crushed his bones by now." But Lee Tae-yoon continued his work, repairing critical mining equipment that had been broken for months. The consortium workers had been unable to fix it because the radiation levels and crushing gravity made extended work impossible. Lee worked for 6 straight hours, completing repairs that should have required weeks of careful robotic maintenance. The third test was the most dangerous. A space station in the Outer Rim had suffered a catastrophic failure in its radiation shielding. The crew had been evacuated, but valuable research data was trapped inside. Medical Officer Im Sung-won volunteered to retrieve it. "This is suicide," protested Dr. Velahan. "Radiation levels inside that station would kill any of our species within minutes. Even our most advanced protective equipment cannot shield against that level of exposure." Im Sung-won suited up in standard human protective gear and entered the damaged station. The consortium doctors monitored his life signs from a safe distance, expecting to watch him die within moments. Instead, they watched in growing amazement. As he moved through the station, collecting data and even treating injured crew members who had been trapped inside. "His radiation exposure should have killed him 3 times over," whispered Dr. Velahan as he studied the readings. "But his life signs are stable. How is this possible?" For 4 hours, Im Sung-won worked inside the death trap of a station. He not only retrieved the research data, but also repaired enough of the shielding to make the station safe for others to enter. When he finally emerged, the consortium medical team rushed to examine him. "Some radiation sickness," Im Sung-won reported calmly. "Nothing serious. I'll be fine in a few days." Chancellor Morden stared at the test results in silence. Each trial had been designed to prove that humans were ordinary beings who had been lucky enough to fool the consortium. Dead, every test had proven the ancient legends true. "They don't just survive," he said quietly to his advisors. "They thrive. They adapt to conditions that would destroy our entire civilizations." The mythical Terrans had passed every test. But Chancellor Morden was beginning to realize that the tests had revealed something far more important than human endurance. They had revealed why the legends existed in the first place. The galaxy needed beings like this to exist, even if it had to believe in myths to find them. The emergency alert echoed through every corridor of Nexus Prime at 3 in the morning. Commander Park Jin-woo was pulled from his sleep by the urgent sound, and within minutes, he and his crew were rushing toward the main council chamber. Something big was happening. The Great Assembly Hall was already filled with alien leaders from across the consortium. Park had never seen so many different species gathered in one place. Their faces, despite their alien features, all showed the same emotion: fear. Chancellor Morden stood at the center of the chamber, his golden robes wrinkled, and his usual confident demeanor completely gone. His hands shook as he activated the massive display screens that surrounded the room. "Fellow council members," he began, his voice hoarse with exhaustion, "our long-range sensor networks have detected movement on the galactic rim. The Devourers are advancing again." A collective gasp rose from the assembled aliens. Park looked around in confusion. He had never heard of the Devourers before, But clearly, everyone else in the room knew exactly what that name meant. The main screen flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of their section of the galaxy. Red markers indicated the current positions of something moving through space, leaving empty systems in their wake. What are the Devourers? Park asked Ambassador Kethera, who was sitting nearby. Her pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. Machines, she whispered. Ancient artificial intelligence that consumes everything in its path. Planets, stars, entire civilizations. They break everything down into raw materials to build more of themselves. On the screen, Park could see the pattern of destruction. Entire star systems had been marked in black, indicating they were completely gone. Not just conquered or occupied, but literally consumed down to their basic atoms. Chancellor Morden continued his report, his voice growing weaker with each word. The Devourer fleet has been advancing steadily for 70 cycles. We have tried everything. Evacuation, negotiation, even attempts at military resistance. Nothing has worked. An elderly alien from the Wisdom Council stood up, his voice trembling. How many worlds have we lost this time? 17 systems in the past cycle alone, Morden replied, including the colonies at Veltar and the research stations near the Bright Nebula. Over 2 billion beings, all gone. The chamber fell, silent. Park felt a chill run down his spine as he began to understand the true scale of the threat. This wasn't just war. It was extinction. Science Officer Bei Juan had been studying the data on her portable computer. She looked up at Park with grave concern. Commander, I've run the calculations based on their current rate of advance. If they maintain this speed, they'll reach the core worlds of the consortium within 6 months. 6 months, Park repeated, letting the number sink in. He looked around at the hundreds of alien species represented in the chamber. All of them would be dead within half a year. Chancellor Morden activated another display, showing battle footage from previous encounters with the Devourers. The machines were massive, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space like a swarm of metal insects, tearing apart everything they encountered. Our ships cannot penetrate their armor, explained Admiral Zethrin of the consortium. Defense force. Our weapons have no effect. When we send fleets to engage them, they simply add our destroyed vessels to their own forces. Park watched the footage with growing horror. The consortium ships were beautiful, designed for exploration and peaceful contact. But against the brutal efficiency of the Devourers, they were completely helpless. This is why you tested us, Park, said suddenly, the truth hitting him like a physical blow. You weren't trying to prove we were fake. We were trying to see if we could fight. Chancellor Morden nodded slowly, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Our species have evolved on peaceful worlds, Commander Park. We have never known true conflict. We have no concept of total war, no understanding of what it means to fight for survival. Dr. Yoon Soo-min leaned forward in her seat. But the legends about humans, they all involve warfare, don't they? Stories about beings who never surrender, who fight impossible battles. Yes, whispered Kethera. The ancient texts speak of Terran warriors who would rather die than retreat. Beings who could find victory even when facing complete destruction. Chamber remained quiet as the implications became clear. The Galactic Consortium, with all its advanced technology and thousands of member species, was defenseless against the Devourers. They had spent generations building a peaceful civilization, and now that peace was about to destroy them. You want us to fight them, Park said. It wasn't a question. Chancellor Morden stood up straighter, and for a moment his old dignity returned. Commander Park Jinwoo of the mythical Terra, I formally request Earth's assistance in defending the Galactic Consortium against total extinction. Park looked at his small crew, 5 humans against a machine intelligence that had consumed hundreds of worlds. The odds were impossible, just like in the legends the aliens remembered. I need to contact Earth, Park said finally. But I can promise you this much. Humans don't abandon their friends, and we don't surrender. For the first time in months, some of the aliens in the chamber began to look hopeful. The mythical Terrans had accepted the challenge. Now they could only pray that the legends about human warriors were as true as everything else they had witnessed. The real test was about to begin. Commander. Park Jin-woo stood in the center of the great council chamber, surrounded by hundreds of alien leaders who looked at him with desperate hope. The weight of their entire civilization rested on his shoulders, and he could feel it in every pair of eyes that watched him. "I'm sending an emergency message to Earth Command," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "But we can't just sit here waiting for help to arrive. If the Devourers reach the core worlds in 6 months, we need to start preparing your defenses right now." The transformation began that very day. Park divided his small crew among the different consortium military bases, each human taking responsibility for training entire alien armies. It was an impossible task, but they had no choice. Tactical Officer Cho Yuna found herself standing before a group of 200 consortium soldiers at the main training facility. They looked eager to learn, but she could see the confusion in their large, gentle eyes when she began explaining basic combat principles. "War is about survival," she told them, pacing back and forth in front of the assembled troops. "Sometimes you have to make choices that seem wrong in order to save lives in the long run." A young Valen soldier raised his hand. "But Instructor Cho, how can we deliberately harm other beings? Our species has never hurt anyone intentionally." Una paused, struggling to find the right words. These aliens had evolved on worlds where conflict simply didn't exist. They had no natural understanding of violence or aggression. Teaching them to fight was like trying to teach fish to fly. "The Devourers aren't alive," she explained patiently. "They're machines. They don't feel pain, they don't have families, and they will destroy everything you care about if you don't stop them." The training was slow and frustrating. Concepts that seemed obvious to humans were completely foreign to the consortium species. The idea of acceptable losses in battle made many of the alien soldiers physically ill. Strategic retreats seemed like cowardice to beings who had never experienced real conflict. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Lee Tae-yoon worked with consortium scientists to modify their ships for combat. The alien vessels were beautiful, but completely defenseless. They had no armor, no weapons, and no tactical systems. "Your ships are built like floating gardens," Lee explained to the lead engineer, a 6-armed creature named Vexkull. "Perfect for exploration and diplomacy, but they won't last 5 minutes against the Devourers." Vexkull looked sadly at the designs for the modifications. "They will no longer be beautiful when we are finished. They'll be alive," Lee replied. "Simply, beauty doesn't matter if you're dead." Dr. Yoon Suman had perhaps the hardest job of all. She was working with consortium medical teams to prepare for casualties on a scale they had never imagined. The alien doctors were skilled at treating minor injuries and illnesses, but they had no experience with battlefield medicine. "You need to understand," she told Dr. Velahan and his staff, "in war, people get hurt badly. You won't have time to save everyone. You have to learn to focus on the patients you can help and let the others go." Double quotes. Dr. Velahan stared at her in horror. "Them die? But that goes against everything we believe." "I know," Suman said gently. "But if you try to save one person who can't be helped, 3 others might die while you're trying. It's horrible, but it's reality." The weeks passed quickly, and progress was painfully slow. The consortium forces were learning, but they still thought like peaceful beings who had never faced true danger. Park began to worry that even when Earth's reinforcements arrived, it might not be enough. Then 6 weeks after Park had sent his message, long-range sensors detected the arrival of Earth's first battle fleet. The ships emerged from hyperspace. In perfect formation above Nexus's prime, the sight took everyone's breath away. The human warships looked nothing like consortium vessels. Where alien ships were curved and elegant, human ships were angular and brutal. Their hulls bore the scars of previous battles, and weapon systems bristled from every surface. These were ships built by a species that knew war. Admiral Ro Minuk's flagship, the Indomitable, docked at Nexus Prime's main port. When the Admiral stepped onto the station, the assembled consortium leaders fell silent. He was older than Park, with gray hair and scars on his face that spoke of battles fought and won. Commander Park, the Admiral said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had led fleets into combat, I've brought everything Earth Command could spare. 50 destroyers, 12 heavy cruisers, and 3 aircraft carriers. It's not much against what we're facing, but it's a start. Park felt relief wash over him. Cavalry had arrived. Admiral Rowe addressed the combined fleet of human and alien vessels over the communication system. His words were translated into dozens of languages, reaching every ship in the massive formation. For thousands of years, the Devourers have consumed worlds because no one fought back, he said, his voice steady and confident. They've grown used to easy victories against species who chose retreat over resistance. But today, that changes. Fleet began moving toward the outer rim, where the Devourers waited. Human ships took point positions, their experienced crews ready for battle. Behind them came the modified consortium vessels, their crews still learning but determined to defend their homes, as they traveled toward the greatest battle in galactic history. The mythical Terrans had become very real protectors. The legends had awakened, and they brought with them humanity's most dangerous gift, the absolute refusal to surrender, no matter how impossible the odds. The galaxy's reality check was about to begin.